Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with the National Weather Service. You're watching Alaska Weather with us, and thanks so much for joining us on this 26th of November. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information, and you can do that a lot of different ways. The phone number is free, 1-800-472-0391. That's the Alaska Weather Information Line. Find us online at weather.gov/Alaska or mobile.weather.gov on your smartphone or tablet. And of course, if you can't find what you're looking for, I always welcome you to just send a quick email, david.snider@noaa.gov. If you can't find what you're looking for, I'm happy to point you in the right direction or answer a weather question or just enjoy some of the weather pictures that you're sharing from your part of the great state. Let's take a look at what's going on out to the west. Weather front moving across the Bering is constricting a lot of wind that's going to ramp up here across the Bering Strait region southward and into Bristol Bay over the next 2 to 3 days. For our issues showing tonight for the western end of the Seward Peninsula and the south-facing shoreline, as well as St. Lawrence Island, a high surf advisory starts tonight at midnight until about 6 o'clock on Saturday. So this is going to be kind of a long duration event where we have south and southeasterly winds, maybe as much as 40 to 50 miles per hour. Because of that, we think high surf could be a problem closer to the coastlines where we have 3 to 4 foot surge into the region. So some of those higher waves could break up over the beach, and you may experience some problems along the coastline there, maybe some minor erosion. Offshore, waves may reach up to 6 to 8 feet, kind of close to the shore, but still away from the coastline itself. So the west coast of the Seward Peninsula, the south-facing coast there, and St. Lawrence Island are all places that may have these issues here. Again, from midnight tonight until about 6 a.m. on Sunday. It should get progressively worse as we go into the evening hours starting tomorrow. As you look down toward the Yukon Delta, places like Kotlik will also experience some flooding. A coastal flood advisory is posted for the Yukon Delta region, especially with Kotlik in mind. 2 to 3 foot waves are expected there, a 2 to 3 foot surge, I should say, and flooding may be possible in the area. So for all of these regions, it's a good idea to bring your possessions up off the shore and the coastline, pull them back in a little bit, and you've got some time to do that this evening before we get into midnight and early morning hours tomorrow when things will start to get worse. So use your time wisely there. And again, those stronger south winds will start to improve as we get into Saturday afternoon. Now, as we look at southeast, totally different story. The weather should be generally nice. Clear sky and colder temperatures are expected tomorrow night for Friday night. So as we look ahead about 24 hours out, we're looking at what is typical for this time of the year. A 39-degree low in Yakutat is typical for tomorrow night, but the forecast low is going to be closer to 30 degrees. For Haines, the average low is about 43. 35 is the predicted low as we go into Friday night and early Saturday morning. Skagway is looking at an average of about 43, but the low could drop to 36. And for Juneau, that number should be 2 degrees above freezing for your predicted minimum temperature, with the average around 43, which is about the same as what we normally see in Hoonah, but the low could drop to 32. So plan and prepare for some cold weather as that moves your way there. Again, this will be for Friday night into early morning Saturday, with cold temperatures in northern and central parts of southeast. It could be about 8 to 10 degrees below the average. A little bit further north into Fairbanks, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're looking at temperatures in the 40s and 50s there. It doesn't look like the rain will get back into your area until Sunday, even though we know some rain's working through right now in places like the south end of Fox have probably seen a few snowflakes, we hear. 20s and 30s for Friday into Saturday, about 39 degrees, and warming up on Sunday as more of that moisture moves in. Here's the big weather picture. Low pressure out in the western Bering is really going to be the big driver for most of Alaska weather as we go through the next 2 to 3 days and into the weekend. This large area of low pressure is driving a front, and you can kind of see that boundary moving eastward here, and then it's going to slow down as it works into the west coast. All the while, high pressure sitting across the Gulf of Alaska. That's driving a lot of moisture up the west coast. And that prolonged period of south and southeasterly winds working into the south-facing coastline of the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and driving water up into places like Kotlik is why we have the advisories posted for you tonight. That high-pressure system that's going to clear out most of southeast and allow temperatures to cool off is still working and strengthening over the Gulf of Alaska. Now, it's bringing in some of the cooler weather that parts of south-central Alaska have noticed this morning. Places around Anchorage made it into the upper 20s and lower 30s, and that cold air is definitely sliding east toward southeastern Alaska tonight. There's a patch of moisture working through the middle interior, in the middle Tanana Valley to be specific. Areas of light rain there, maybe a little bit of snow at elevation if you're up in the hills away from Fairbanks. High pressure sitting off to your west there, that's breaking up a lot of clouds around south central, and all that drier air is moving towards southeast right now. Up to the north, some patchy areas of clouds and certainly some fog there, and our low pressure system out west is down to about 982 millibars and strengthening. As we go into tonight, it looks like a piece of that will move off to the north and east. So we'll have two areas of low pressure. The main issue that we're watching is the constriction of the air here across the western parts of Alaska, and that should allow that south and southeasterly wind to really strengthen. Of course, that's going to have aviation impacts as well. If you're flying, you'll notice a widespread area of IFR traveling along and ahead of that front. You'll see the flying weather maps here in just a minute. High pressure across western Canada will also lock in some patchy areas of fog, and we expect to see some of that working its way into northern parts of the Gulf. It may not be terribly extensive, though, in parts of southeast. It wouldn't be surprising to see local areas of fog, though, as that high pressure ridge strengthens. As we get into Friday, that front is working its way into Kotzebue Sound, Seward Peninsula, and just on the outside edge of the Yukon Delta, right over Nunivak Island as well. That means that some of the stronger winds will be right along the coast and over shallow areas of water. That could help to push that water up. So once again, coastal flood advisories for the Yukon Delta region, specifically around Kotlik, and then high surf advisories for the south-facing shorelines of the Seward Peninsula all the way out into the Bering Strait, including St. Lawrence Island. For most of the areas to the east, you'll see increasing clouds from west to east with high pressure across the Yukon at 1,031 millibars. We have an extension of that, even a stronger center actually at 1,035 millibars. We still have a trough of low pressure sitting across southeast, and that drawing air off of the British Columbia areas of western Canada will help to keep things pretty dry. Might be a little breezy at times. Again, small craft advisories would be the most likely issue. And areas across the eastern interior should be pretty clear. As we get into Saturday, the front that's been working across western Alaska finally falls apart. But we get a new surge of warm air that's been traveling up from the western areas of the Gulf and getting support from the Pacific jet stream. We see that ramping up into a cold front. Pockets of rainfall will exist around that. And out ahead of that, it looks like it will have enough moisture that we'll probably see periods of moderate to heavy rain. Some of that could reach into southwestern Alaska, specifically around Bristol Bay. And watch for some areas of rain around south central and southwest. As that front travels northward, it will squeeze moisture up against the coast. And eventually, as we get into Saturday night and Sunday, winds here across the northern part of the Gulf will likely come up fairly sharply. So watch for that. We call that a barrier jet when that happens, and it's a very typical response to air flowing into a low pressure center out to our west. Winds get pretty snotty right here across the northern part of the Gulf. So if you've been there, you know what I mean. Areas of low pressure across the west will have waves of low pressure traveling northward. This southerly flow will have these embedded waves here, and each one of those passing through will stir up the wind, clouds, and probably some rainfall as it travels northward. High pressure across northern parts of the Yukon, 1,031 millibars there. Still working that moisture up against the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range on the north side at elevation, probably talking about snow showers there. Out across the west, remnants of that upper level low at the surface will still be showery in nature, and each one of those will also work its way over the Aleutians, and in the west, showers, clouds, and then resulting areas of fog. In the meantime, behind that, we'll be passing through. Let's take a look at temperatures Friday morning again. So this is not the cold morning in southeast. That'll be the next one. As we start tomorrow morning, 30s and 40s for southeast. Still very close to seasonal averages, what we were showing there with that graphic a minute ago. You can always find that on Facebook as well, weather.gov/Juneau for very specific information. These are close to seasonal norms. Yakutat might be cooling off a little bit. Cordova and Valdez also looking a little bit cool. Glen Allen, Gulkana, about 23 degrees, 14 in Healy. 19 for Arctic Village, and 20s for some of the passes. As you get up to Anaktuvik Pass, 18 degrees there, 20s for the Beaufort Seacoast, 31 at Kaktovik, and above freezing from Utqiagvik all the way down to Wainwright and into Kotzebue Sound. Temperatures warm up sharply as you come down into the west coast. Readings there in the 40s, 46 for St. Paul, and just shy of 50 degrees really for the Alaska Peninsula out toward Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. Adak and Atka also in the mid-40s. Highs on Friday should be pretty nice. In southeast, mid to upper 50s for you. It sounds like a great day. Lower 50s for Kenai Peninsula. Kenai itself around 52. Homer 51. Kodiak nearing 57 degrees. Bristol Bay temperatures also in the mid-50s for you. Bethel 52. St. Lawrence Island, Gamble, and Savunga just shy of 50 degrees. And it looks like Ambler and Bettles will be in the 30s and 40s. Arctic Village down to 31 for a daytime high, so cooling off sharply there. 39 in Kaktovik. And low to mid-40s for most of the Chukchi Seacoast. Prince William Sound temps will be in the lower to mid-50s. Gulkana, about 48. Now here's Saturday morning. This is the cold stuff we were talking about. Temps will drive into the lower 30s for many locations, a few places hovering near 40 degrees, but it does look like temperatures will be cold enough to approach that freezing mark in a few places like we saw, I believe it was Haines and maybe Sitka. Around Prince William Sound, lower to mid 30s for you, 36 in Kenai, 25 in Eagle, 26 in Northway, just about 32 degrees in Fairbanks, 27 in Fort Yukon. Kotzebue, you're looking at 41, Shishmaref 45, Nome 44, and many in Southwest will still be looking at overnight lows in the lower to mid 40s, with South Central temperatures around Talkeetna at 32, Healy 28, South Central a little bit further down the road into the 30s, Kodiak 47, and most of the Alaska Peninsula and the chain in the upper 40s to about 50 degrees. Highs on Saturday will be mild around Bristol Bay, 50s and 60s there, but it does look like it will be raining. In the interior, lower to mid 50s for you, 40 around the northern coast, 44 in Utqiagvik, 50 for places around Deering, south toward Unalakleet, and southeast in the mid to upper 50s. What's the long-term outlook as we head toward early October? We're already there. Looks like the signals are pointing toward a good chance for above normal temperatures to continue. We've been there for a while. Across the west and the interior, the signal kind of weakens a little bit at the further north and east you go, and including southeast, but it does look like there is a very good chance from Nome all the way across west and southwest, especially west of the Alaska Range, that above normal temperatures will be likely in the two-week period heading out from 8 to 14 days. That'll be the days ending around October 10th. As far as precipitation goes, that includes above normal chances for wet weather or snowy weather in the west and drier than normal conditions across south central and southeast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And on to your aviation weather now. This front that's working across the Bering will have a wide area of IFR out in front of it and along it from St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait all the way down to the eastern Aleutians. Out ahead of that, though, a pretty wide area of at least VFR conditions for the upper Koyukuk all the way down in the middle Yukon and southwestern Alaska. Hit and miss areas of IFR are expected across the Copper River Valley, up into the Susitna Valley, and around Healy and north of the Alaska Range, and simply due to fog, it looks like. Areas across the Beaufort Seacoast and southward toward Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass will probably see a period of poor visibility in the morning, and then conditions will likely improve. For southeast, it does look like VFR to start. Don't be surprised to run into some hit and miss areas of fog, though, and if suddenly that changes later on this afternoon and into tonight, you may end up with a dense fog advisory. A high pressure will be in control of this region. For the afternoon on Friday, watch for marginal conditions across the Beaufort Seacoast, IFR from the Chukchi all the way through the Bering Strait over Nunivak Island and southward into the eastern chain and the Alaska Peninsula again. And as this area of low pressure ramps up across the north and western Gulf, it does look like we'll start to see IFR building into parts of Kodiak Island and the northwestern Gulf very quickly by Saturday morning. This is where a lot of that rain is going to be, and wind will be an issue as well. We'll see turbulence here in a minute. Watch for IFR across parts of the Beaufort and the Chukchi, and then into the western Brooks Range, especially the upper Kobuk and Noatak Valley regions for sure. And then IFR around the Bering Strait, and then hit and miss across the west with that upper level low is pressing eastward. As we get into Saturday afternoon, we're still looking really good for southeast and a large part of south central, the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, all the way up Cook Inlet, and really most of the Susitna Valley and certainly the Matanuska Valley look A-OK. The Copper River Valley looks good. Tanana Valley looks good. The upper Kuskokwim looks pretty good, but marginal conditions will start to sneak up the valleys here as we get into Saturday night and into Sunday. Watch for a lot of this to spread eastward. In the meantime, the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range will likely look at marginal conditions as we go, with IFR across the Brooks Range, and again, the south-facing slopes of the Seward Peninsula all the way into the Bering Strait and central and western Bering Sea with hit and miss IFR there. Here's a look at your pass conditions in detail now for your Friday. If you're flying in Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass, conditions will be the worst in the morning, but it does look like things should improve throughout the day, heading for marginal conditions as we go. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, VFR is expected really all day long, and the same goes for Rainy Pass, Windy Pass, on into Isabel Pass. Things look A-OK. And as we get into Mentasta Pass, we start to see that fog creeping back into the picture. So IFR to start and probably VFR by the end of the day. We're not in the heart of winter yet, so it will be possible to burn some of that off. Tanita Pass looking like IFR as we go. And Portage Pass expecting to see VFR conditions as we go through most of the day, and looks pretty good for the next couple days for Chilkoot and White Pass, barring any fog that forms in the region locally in southeast. Now, freezing levels, surface freezing line hugging the Beaufort Seacoast and then dropping right through the Koyukuk and the lower to middle Yukon Valley and then jogging over to southeast across south central Alaska. Above that, you can see the 2, 4, and 6,000 foot freezing lines jamming northward quickly into the Chukchi. Whoa, a lot of warmth on that strong southerly flow. This is going to continue its surge northward as we go into the weekend, but we are going to have this layer of colder air out here, so we'll have to keep watch on that. This is the type of setup that you can get overrunning precipitation problems there, and we were not talking about freezing rain anywhere just yet, but this would be the kind of situation there where it could start to show up. So just be mindful of that moving forward into the weekend in case something like that changes here in some of our interior valleys. South of Kodiak Island and towards Sand Point, levels there at 6, 8, even 10,000 feet. So warm air certainly coming in. As you can see on the icing potential, we have isolated moderate drawn in across a wide area for north and western parts of Alaska and certainly the interior. Levels there are above 6 to 10,000 feet, so it's still kind of on the upper end of things, but certainly something to keep watch on, especially in the north where that could come down as we get colder. Right now, a ridge of high pressure sitting across Alaska for tomorrow, a deep trough in the east, a deep trough in the west, and most of Alaska is going to be right under that ridge, but that means the west coast is in a driving southwesterly flow, a lot of moisture, a lot of clouds, and probably some turbulence for most of our capes with high pressure sitting across the Gulf, light winds for southeast for the most part, and south and westerlies over the interior. At 3,000 feet, a really similar pattern here. The greatest amount of wind coming up on that southerly flow for the west coast, 40 to 45 knots here. South and westerlies for the eastern bearing. Low pressure still way out near Russia, and high pressure building across south central in the Copper River Valley. So as far as turbulence goes for Friday, a little bit of chop leaving the Dixon entrance and moving out of southeast below 4,000 feet. The main focus will be across the western Brooks, the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island. Most of the YK Delta has at least a little bit of chop, as well as the Aleutians.
A flying horse and another lunar leapfrog. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regis, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. If you're a fan of horses and peculiar star names, have we got a show for you.
Plus, we have another lunar leapfrog between the Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn next week. What are we talking about? Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set up for an hour after sunset facing east. Pegasus, the winged horse, is easy to find. Simply look for 4 bright stars that form a large square just above the eastern horizon.
That square is an asterism we call the Great Square of Pegasus. If you've watched our show for a while, you probably noticed that some of the stars in the sky have very interesting names.
That's because many of the stars were named by Persian astronomers thousands of years ago. When astronomers of that time chose to name the stars, they often named them after the body part it represented in the constellation.
The stars that make up the Great Square of Pegasus, starting with the one highest above the horizon and moving counterclockwise, are Shiat, Alpheratz, Algenib, and Markab.
Shiat, whose name in Arabic means the leg, is a red giant star 196 light years from Earth, and it's approximately 1,500 times as bright as our sun.
Alpheratz, which means navel of the horse, is 97 light years away from us and is also the brightest star in the neighboring constellation Andromeda.
The next star is Algenib. It's 390 light years away, and its name means the flank.
The last of the 4 stars in the triangle is Markab. Its name means the saddle of the horse, and it's a white subgiant star. It's exhausted the hydrogen in its core and expanded to almost 5 times the diameter of our almost 1 million mile wide sun.
The stars that branch out from Shiat moving upward form the legs of Pegasus. The star directly above Shiat is a binary star system named Matar. Matar's name is derived from an Arabic phrase meaning lucky star of rain. Its Bayer designation is Eta Pegasi, and it's 167 light years away.
Matar is interesting because its primary star is a yellow giant 18 times the diameter of our sun, with a rotation rate of 818 days. Its companion star is a yellow-white star which orbits every 813 days.
And, believe it or not, the U.S. Navy cargo ship USS Matar was named after this star. It was responsible for delivering troops, goods, and equipment during World War II, and it was built in Jacksonville, Florida.
Moving toward the head of Pegasus, we have the star Enif, which marks his nose. Enif is 690 light years away and is a supergiant star 12 times the mass and 185 times the diameter of our Sun.
The next star is Beham, also known as Theta Pegasi. I like to think of it as the eye of Pegasus. Its name is derived from an Arabic phrase meaning lucky stars of the young beasts and is over 97 light years away.
Speaking of lucky, one of the stars in Pegasus's other leg is a star just to the upper right from Shiat. Its name is Saddlebari, and its name means lucky star of the splendid one, and it's a yellow giant star 106 light years away.
That's 3 lucky stars in one constellation. Wow. The last star we'll talk about is the one just above Markab. Its traditional name is Homam and is approximately 204 light years away.
Now let's check out our third lunar leapfrog of the year.
Okay, we have our skies set up for an hour after sunset on October 3rd facing southwest. The waxing crescent moon is just a hair to the left of Jupiter and they are super close that night.
That's right, James. Now check out the moon on the 4th and then the 5th.
Wow, the first quarter moon is only 2 degrees away from Saturn. I think I want to dance now.
So check out the stars of Pegasus tonight and Jupiter and Saturn as you keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And on to your marine weather now. Good news, ice is reforming now and refreezing as we've moved past that seasonal ice minimum of the year. This is all happening up across the north. Here's AKwx, and just off your screen is Kaktovik. Here's Wainwright. Most of this ice is anywhere from 350 to maybe over 400 nautical miles to the north and northeast, so a long way away, but ice is reforming again, so that's the great news. More information at weather.gov/Anchorage/ice, and the Alaska Sea Ice Program informs me they have posted their seasonal outlook for the coming months ahead. Make sure you check that out. It's got great news, and I'll be looking forward to reading it myself. Northerlies across the inside passage of southeast, 25 knots there in the Lynn Canal with 5-foot seas. Small craft advisories in the area with 15 knots a little bit further down the inside. 3-foot seas there, looking at 8 to 9-foot seas across the outside. 6 to 7-foot seas outside of Icy Cape, Cape Fairweather, and down toward Cross Sound. Those seas should pick up a little bit more with that northerly wind. Winds will diminish a little bit more on Saturday, especially in the morning with high pressure in charge. It's going to be a cool, crisp, and clear morning for many locations. Don't be surprised to find a few pockets of some regional, maybe some dense fog in a few areas there. So keep that in mind, but generally speaking, winds will be light, seas will be small, and it's going to be a crisp morning in southeast with some places getting close to freezing. 5 to 10 knot winds on the inside, 2-foot seas there, looking at 4 to 5-foot seas on the outside, 10 to 15 knots on the outside. For Friday across Prince William Sound, high pressure is in charge at this point, and we've got a light and kind of variable flow for the region. 2 to 4-foot seas around Hitchenbrook entrance, 2 to 3, maybe even 4-foot seas coming down Cook Inlet. 20-knot winds there across the western Barrens. A southerly flow on the eastern side with 3-foot seas. As you get into Saturday, a stronger south and easterly flow builds into the Barrens with 8-foot seas there on a 30-knot wind and 10 to 20-knot winds across Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound. Inside, though, it looks fairly quiet. Easterly flow at 10 knots with 2-foot seas on Saturday. Southeasterlies will build around Bristol Bay, 25 knots for you with 6 to 8-foot seas down the Bering Sea coast. You're looking at 7 to 9-foot seas across the Pacific coast waters, 25 knots there. And easterlies from 15 knots coming up to 25 on Saturday in Shelikof Strait with 5-foot seas. South and easterlies across the north and western Gulf bleed into the Pacific coast waters there with 8 to 11-foot seas and 25 to 30-knot winds across the Bering coastal waters there with 6-foot seas expected in Bristol Bay on Saturday. For the Aleutians, a south and southwesterly flow should be expected. Some of the higher seas will be out west at 15 knots. Look for 10 to 11-foot seas across the Pacific waters with 8 to 10-foot seas across the Bering Sea coast. The highest winds, highest seas offshore right now. It looks like some of those could be reaching up to 20 feet. As we get into Saturday, conditions should improve for all areas. 15 to 20 knots across the chain. Look for a westerly flow from Adak to Atka, all the way out toward Nikolsky with 8 to 9-foot seas there. 5 to 6-foot seas continue across the Bering Sea coast, a little bit higher out around Kista, Kiska at 8 feet. And northerlies are expected across the eastern end of the eastern chain, 15 to 20 knots, with 6 to 7 foot seas on Saturday. For the west coast, strong southerly winds may result in some unusually high surf and again some coastal flooding. The main places we're watching for coastal flooding will be around Kotlik and the Yukon Delta region. That'll start on midnight and go into early 6 o'clock Saturday morning. High surf advisory is posted for the south-facing shorelines of the Seward Peninsula and areas around the Bering Strait, including St. Lawrence Island. The same conditions there with 3 to 4 foot surges and 6 to 8 foot seas offshore. We see that's up to 7 feet there in Norton Sound and 12 to 15 feet north and west of Nunivak Island. Conditions should improve by Saturday afternoon. A south and southeasterly flow for you, 15 to 20 knots, and 4 to 10 foot seas in the region with 11 foot seas around St. Matthew. Northerly winds around St. Paul and St. George by this point with an 8 foot sea. For Friday, the Beaufort Seacoast looking at south and westerly winds there. A westerly flow, in fact, for Kaktovik and 5 foot seas. Southeasterlies building around the Chukchi coast, 25 to 35 with 11 to even 12 foot seas, in some cases a little bit offshore. Conditions should improve on Saturday once again as winds settle down, 20 to 25, looking for 6 to 7 foot seas there. Southerlies across the Beaufort Seacoast, a south and easterly wind, 15 knots there around Utqiagvik and Prudhoe Bay. Let's recap tonight's weather. Low pressure is building out across the western Bering and a slow-moving front working toward the west coast tonight. And for Friday, will constrict the amount of wind right up against the coast, and a south and southeasterly flow may bring water up around the south-facing shorelines of the Seward Peninsula and the Bering Strait region, and could produce some coastal flooding around places like Kotlik in particular. So we're watching that, and again, alerts have been issued. Showers of snow should be possible across some of the higher terrain in the interior, with high pressure across the Bering, across the Yukon, I should say, and across the Gulf. That's going to slow the winds down and keep things pretty chilly for Friday night into Saturday for southeast, with some places getting close to freezing. In the meantime, periods of moderate to heavy rain will set up in the west and slowly move east as we head into Saturday night and Sunday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.